Because we're in this room, we all get it, don't we? We all understand the issue. But I sometimes think, well, actually, do we really get it? Have we really got the scale and the urgency of the problem? Do we really understand what we're facing? Before I get to my key point. And I'm going to give you a few statistics here. You can't argue with physics, you can't argue with chemistry, so these statistics are kind of where we start. Think about how long we've known about climate change. We've known about it for, well, since about 1860, but let's come to recent history now. Since 1992, the Rio de Janeiro Earth Summit, we were going to cure climate change. That was the point when the Framework Convention on Climate Change was signed. That was the point. Okay, it's in hand. We're going to cure climate change. Well, here's a statistic for you. Since then, more than half of the carbon dioxide ever emitted has been emitted. We've emitted more carbon dioxide since 1992 than in the entire history of the human race before 1992. That's the rate of change that we have with exponential growth. 75% of the carbon dioxide ever emitted has been emitted in my lifetime. Probably a lot more than that, although I don't take personal responsibility for all of them. There are a few other statistics we need to think about as well. Again, it's about physics. How much extra heat has actually gone into the sea as a result of that? Well, it's roughly the equivalent of a hydrogen bomb going off every minute for 150 years. And let's think about tipping points. Let's think about how things might change. And think about this simple physics experiment. Take a block of ice at 0 degrees centigrade and you warm that up until it becomes water at 0 degrees centigrade. Okay, so the temperature hasn't risen. It's simply gone from being ice to being water. You then put the same amount of heat in again, and that water will heat up to 80 centigrade. That gives you a sense to realise just how important the ice caps are. When the ice caps stop melting, all of that heat will go into raising our temperature. So these are the things we're having to face at the moment. We have an urgency of a problem that's not going away. We have a carbon budget. If we blow that, we'll go way past 1.5 degrees centigrade since the Industrial Revolution. That carbon budget, at this rate of burning, we'll blow that in about 5 years, probably more. So the chance of actually staying within 1.5 degrees is slim. Even if we bring all our emissions down to zero, we're going to have to carry on because there's too much carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. We have a concentration that hasn't been experienced by humans before. The safe level is probably 350 parts per million or less, probably a lot less. We're at 412, and that's going up all the time. Coming out of COVID, we're shooting straight back up to the same amount of emissions that we had before. Now, the reasons I'm saying this is not just to scare you. You probably know a lot of these things, but I think we do have to grasp the size and the scale and the urgency of the problem. Baby steps won't do it anymore. We're now past the period of smooth transition. We often talk about transitioning, don't we, from one society to another. We had that opportunity. We've had that opportunity for 30 years. We're now past that time. My key point now is that we're moving into a period of disruption. Slow transition won't do it. What we're talking about now is disruption. I mean this in a technical sense, not in terms of societal breakdown or anything, but the concept of disruption. To get the speed of change, we can't look at little bits of movement. We're having to look at disruptive technologies, things that make big leaps from one system to another. There's a famous picture of New York in 1900, and it says underneath it, "Spot the car." 10 years later, there's the same picture, and it says underneath it, "Spot the horse." That was an example of disruption. The car completely disrupted the horse in that respect. Now, we've got loads of examples of disruption like that. The CD disrupted the cassette and the record market. The DVD disrupted VHS films and so on. So we know about disruption, how a new technology completely disrupts what went before it. We are at that stage now. We are looking at disruptive technologies. We're not looking at small changes, we're looking for things that are going to make the big leap. And they are actually in our consciousness now. Think about solar, think about wind, think about batteries. They will disrupt fossil fuel industry. Fossil fuel industry is only being maintained by corruption, effectively. It's being held up by subsidies and so on. That industry will be disrupted. It makes no economic sense to invest in fossil fuels for now. So this is my key point, really. It's actually about... Thank you. It's actually about looking for disruption. The problem is, quite often you can only see disruption in retrospect, when it's actually happened. We need to see where the disruption is coming and go with it. Very often people fight against disruption. They see it as a problem to overcome. We often talk about the sacrifices we have to make. No, let's think again. Let's think about looking forward. Where's the disruption coming from? How can we work with it? Disruptive technologies, that's probably the easy thing. Of course electric cars are going to replace fossil fuel cars, but that's a small thing. Of course the wind and solar is going to replace fossil fuels. Again, it's a fairly small thing. How about disruptive systems? How is our society going to change to be in the right place for a more sustainable society? I don't know, but I'm thinking it's things to do with increased localism, increased smart technology, looking at things locally rather than nationally, that sort of thing. Now I want to finish now with just 3 words. So what do we have to think about in terms of the scale that we need to, the way we need to work? Just 3 words: community, place, and purpose. You can get very depressed about it with eco-anxiety, but think of, well, community, working with the community. First thing to do, often you get a list of jobs to do when you talk to conservationists, don't you? First thing to do is find people of like minds, join a group, find a community, work with a community, work with people who are working with you. Second thing, your place. Cherish your local area, cherish your local place, your local nature. I would say that, wouldn't I, coming from the Sussex Wildlife Trust, but your local nature is important. It's actually what keeps you alive, earth systems. And the third thing is about purpose, having a higher purpose in what you do. Become a citizen, not a consumer. Have empathy, be sharing, and so on. Work with people, don't just think of yourself as a consumer. Now, all of these things are actually, I haven't mentioned buying more fast cars or earning more or working harder, have I? These are the sorts of things which will overcome eco-anxiety. So that's where I want to leave it at the moment, just the idea that we need to think disruptively, we need to find that disruption, go with it, look for the new society, and work together as a community. Thank you.